Well, here we go. Welcome to the Profit Toolbelt podcast. This show is just for builders, remodelers, and GCs. And if you serve commercial or residential customers and you're interested in the business of the contracting business, and you're at a place where you're excited because you're already doing 1 or 2 million a year in sales, but you're also wise enough to know you need some new answers to old problems, then you're ready. Because this show is all about getting to the next level by working smarter, not just harder. And to help us do that, today's guest is Jonathan Porter-Whistman. Make sure you get both him and me on LinkedIn if you're not there. His name is Jonathan Porter-Whistman. His last name is spelled Whistman. And my name is Dominic Rubino, but you probably knew that already. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you're not there. Listen, there's the topic that we're going to be talking about today is 5 things you don't know about hiring that is stalling your construction business. And here's why this episode's important. I've got a list of 5 things here, but have you ever interviewed somebody fantastic? Like you're really excited. You go home and you tell your wife, oh my God, we finally found the right person. It's unbelievable. Here, they just landed on our doorstep. And so you go ahead and hire them. And a few days later, it's so bad. You're wondering how you can just close the company and move overnight instead of having them show up one more day. Well, that's what Jonathan and I are going to talk about today. See, number one, interviewing and recruiting isn't something most of us are trained for. And so we can't look for the indicators that tell us whether someone's going to be successful or not. There might be people that you and I have said no to that would have been a perfect long-term high contributor to our company. Well, Jonathan has a way for us to find that. He's going to talk about a tool he uses that helps us spot potential in people very early in the recruiting process. He's also built and sold some companies of his own, which tells me he knows what he's doing. You know, most people only sell one business in their life if they ever do it all. Here's an interesting one for you. For those of you who are fans of Tommy Mello, there's a Tommy Mello connection in this between Jonathan and myself, and that I think you're going to find interesting. And then Jonathan's also the author of a book called The Sales Boss, The Real Secret to Hiring, Training, and Managing a Sales Team. Pretty interesting. So if you run a crew of designers or salespeople, you might want to check out that book. Look, I went and I read the book reviews of his book on Amazon, and it's interesting if there's anything consistent between all those comments. You know, I read them all, but it's the fact that the words practical, real, and usable keeps coming up again and again, which is pretty high praise for a book these days. So once again, the book's called The Sales Boss, The Real Secret to Hiring, Training, and Managing a Sales Team. Look, you know, there are simple systems to help you run this business. There are. Make the money you deserve and live the life you want. You just have to tie into those systems. Those simple systems give you that quiet confidence to take this company wherever you want to get to. And you guys have heard me say this before, and I want to remind you, one of the tricks, one of the things you can do to give yourself confidence is shoulders up and back, chin up, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. That is the kind of confidence I'm talking about. And that's what I want to bring to you in the show. If I had to summarize everything for you in this podcast, it's about the mindset of growth and success for you standing up tall, shoulders back, chin up, as a business owner, looking into the future with confidence. Now, I talked about mindset. So when I talk about mindset, you know I've got a couple of dad jokes locked and loaded for you. And why dad jokes? Why bad jokes? And why dad jokes poorly delivered with poor timing? Well, I want to get you laughing because I want your mind open to hear what Jonathan has to say. So even though today's topic is more about recruiting, I decided to build our joke section on Chuck Norris and a couple of sales tips that a couple of sales themed or, you know, marketing themed Chuck Norris things. So let's do that. I'm going to do that in a voice. You guys know sometimes I like doing a voice. So here, I could see some of you giggling already. You're just waiting. Chuck Norris doesn't call the wrong number. You answered the wrong phone. When Chuck Norris looks in the mirror shatters. Not even glass is stupid enough to get in between Chuck Norris and Chuck Norris. If you spell Chuck Norris in Scrabble, you win forever. When Chuck Norris drives a Lamborghini, people assume the Lamborghini is compensating for something. When Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he had 3 missed calls from Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris can leave a message before the beep. Chuck Norris can slam a revolving door. Chuck Norris doesn't wear a watch. He decides what time it is. There, I did that in my cool voice. I'm sure you guys are killing yourself. And you're going to try to deliver it yourselves. I want to hear your stories. Listen, I host this podcast because one day I want to be your business coach. I would be very proud to work with you in that way. As a matter of fact, I have a team of business coaches and I've personally hand selected all of them. I have extremely high expectations for the people that join my team, and I am proud of every single one of them. So let me go into business coach mode right now. I have two simple actions for you. Number one, I'm going to challenge you. In this episode, you're going to hear something or learn something or realize something, but I want you to take action on that thing in the next 24 hours. And then I want you to pay attention on how that thing improves your business or your life. We're looking for change here, right? And then number two is I just want you to change your thinking. I want you to think on this idea. Are you happy being a contractor who feels stuck at 1 or 2 million a year? Or are you ready to learn the steps to get you to the next level? Well, by the end of today's episode, you, my friend, will know the answer. So let's get to it. Mr. Jonathan Porter-Whistman, how are you?
Good. It's nice to see you, Dominic.
Yeah, nice to see you as well. Looks bright and sunny where you are.
It is. I'm in Phoenix, so we get bright and sunny almost all the time, except we had a outdoor fundraising event for my wife's animal rescue this last weekend, and
Yeah.
it rained.
Oh, really?
So
Of all things in Phoenix.
you normally don't consider the rain when you're doing an
No.
outdoor event in Phoenix.
No, you guys have cloud warnings on the news.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a cloud. It's blocking the sun. Yeah. We did a conference there once and we named it Surface of the Sun.
The surface
so
of
hot.
the sun.
It was so
Yeah.
hot. So incredible.
You know the weather is pretty much the same when a cloud makes the news for the weather.
Right. Yeah. That gives you the indication.
But this is a perfect time of year to be in Phoenix. It's beautiful outside. You can still get out and not sweat, and it's enjoyable. So we've been getting a lot of hiking in.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you guys have incredible hiking around there.
We do.
What's it called? The A Mountain? That was behind the hotel we were at.
Oh, I don't know. There's a lot. Camelback Mountain's probably the most famous if you're in the downtown area. But yeah, great hiking all around.
Yeah, just beautiful. I think people probably know. If they don't know, that was an ad for Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, we are on the Travel Channel. Come on over.
Let's do an ad for Jonathan Porter-Whistman. Let me do this. Jonathan Porter-Whistman, who the heck are you? And how is it that you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing contractors all over the world?
I've been asking myself that existential question as well. Who the heck am I?
Yeah.
But I wrote a book called The Sales Boss about 6 years ago. It's all about building sales organizations because I realized very early on that nothing happens in a business until you can sell something. And then it's not enough to be able to sell it as the entrepreneur owner. You actually have to be able to duplicate yourself and build a high-performing sales team. So I had built and sold a couple of companies and started being asked about, well, what should I do for my business? And that led to my book being published by Wiley, Having Success, Helping Companies Scale Their Business. But the way I got into the construction home services industry specifically is I was speaking at a conference.
Yeah.
And I met this gal, and I'm a big believer in like pre-hire assessments. You're probably familiar with like Myers-Briggs, DISC, introversion, extroversion. I love those things.
Yeah.
To give you some idea of the sort of person that's sitting across from you. And so I wrote about him in my book. I'm speaking at a conference and she approaches me at the conference and says, I like assessments like that, but I think they fall a little bit short. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, I think what a company really cares about is not, is somebody introverted or extroverted or what's their intelligence, but what they care about is, will they show up? Will they stick around long enough? And will they be talented at the job? Because if they're talented at it, they're gonna do great work, right? And it's gonna be fulfilling for them. So that plugs into your culture. And she had a great story. I got to start knowing her. She grew up in Taiwan, literally in a rice paddy, no running water, no electricity. First of her family go to college. Data scientist, IO psychologist. And she'd started working with large companies like Mercedes-Benz, CrowdStrike, and she'd go into these companies and analyze their workforce. So think about a bunch of car salespeople, right?
Right.
And all of the psychographics coming out of research and academia, things that are consistent, stable human traits like grit. How do we handle stress? How do we respond to authority? How do we bounce back from adversity?
Adversity. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so she'd made these all very usable question sets. So she would analyze a big group of people doing it. And then the magic on the other side was to get actual performance data. So in terms of car sales, how many cars did you sell? How long did you work for the company?
Yeah.
And put this into a machine learning algorithm to say, of all these things that you can measure, here are the 10 or 12 that actually matter. And here's sort of the weighting of each of those. It's sort of like having the perfect blend of ingredients to cook that meal you eat at a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah. You're talking about building a team on purpose.
Yeah, building a
Because
team
I
on
imagine
purpose.
you take this data and you turn it around. You say, now go find me more people like the top 20% of my top people.
That's it, exactly. And so I became an equity partner in the company, moved it here to the US. So it's myself and the two founders, and we've been selling to large enterprise. And on the other side, in my sales boss consulting, I had a client, Tommy Mello. Some of your folks might know him, A1 Garage.
Tommy, yeah, he's been on the show here. I've been on his show. He's fantastic. Great energy.
Yeah, great energy.
Yeah.
He sold like 46% of his company last year for $500 million. So he's doing over 200 million in revenue at this point. But I had worked with him with his team previously. And so I said, we're building these prediction models. I wonder if we could build something for garage door technicians. Like, what will their average ticket size be? And something he calls a TTL score, which is a blend of customer satisfaction. So it's like callbacks, rework, Google rankings. And so we were able to build a prediction model to do that. And that got me thinking, how do we bring this to the smaller trades organization where they don't have hundreds or thousands of people that you can get data from?
Right.
And so we started by going into a large trades organization like Nexstar that has a bunch of HVAC, plumbing, electrical contractors, got a lot of their companies to let us assess all of their people doing the job every day and get actual performance data. And we've built out prediction models. At this point, we have well over 6 million data points that a construction company can use to say, is this person I'm about to hire on my team going to fit or not? And we package that all up in a really nice automation platforms online that allows them to post the job, do the interviews, screen them.
Let me ask you about that posting the job. How much so you gather this information on the people who are doing really well in the field already.
Yep.
That information comes back as data. You can sift it, you can sort it.
Yep.
Some of the cool tools that I know, at least from the disc side, is it tells me words and phrases that work with that kind of person and words and phrases that don't work with a certain kind of person. Are you able to take your data and do the same thing where you write an ad that appeals to the right kind of person?
Yeah, absolutely. So although when you're writing, and there's this, the whole area of attraction is an interesting thing, and it's sort of counterintuitive. What you actually want when you're writing a job ad or you're putting your social, fingers out in the universe is you actually want ads that repel people.
That exclude people. Yeah.
Right. It's sort of like, you remember the ads for the Marines. Like, they show some really rough days. Yeah. And there is a certain subset of people that are going to be like, sign me up for that.
I want to do that. Yeah.
Right. And there's a whole nother group of people who are like, no way.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea. And that's really what you're wanting, is you're wanting to be so real about what is going to happen on that job that the people that does it for raise their hand and go, I want to play as a part of that team, and the other people run the other direction.
It's funny you say that, because there's one of those lines. I think we've seen it in other places, and I wonder if anybody else has recognized it, especially in the trades. But an ad that says you must be able to consistently lift 50 pounds overhead, repeated times throughout the day. And what happens is you don't get people who can't lift 50 pounds overhead all day, but you get people who would be interested in doing that because they're putting a heating unit up there or a heat exchanger. That's part of the job. But you have to say that you have to be willing and able to repeatedly lift 50 pounds overhead every day. As an example of, it excludes certain people because they're not interested in that, or they've got a shoulder injury and they're like, yeah, I could never do that.
Yeah, somebody that doesn't mind climbing into a hot attic in Phoenix at 100 degrees
Yeah.
because they're serving families and keeping families in a state of comfort.
Yeah.
There's certain people that just aren't going to be willing to do that at all, and others that in that act of service towards a family and in order to be a
It
part of
drives
your
them.
team are going to be more than willing to do that.
Yeah. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Or
I also
Louisiana crawl
find
spaces would be the opposite.
I find the reason that business owners don't typically describe the job actually how it is they might have gotten to a point in their career they don't want to do that anymore. And so they're like, I
Mm,
don't want to turn people off. Nobody would like to actually do that. But you have to you have to get it out there exactly sort of what are the job requirements and why would somebody do that? What are the benefits that you're bringing them? That's going to allow you to repel the
yeah.
people you don't want, attract the people that you do want. And then secondly, you can use a lot of tools like the one that we have that has data so that it overcomes your own bias because we'll tend to hire
Ah.
somebody that shows up in the interview that seems sincere, they seem likable,
Oh,
right? We get along easy with them. And then all of a sudden, we're not actually hiring them to get along with us and be
yeah.
sincere. We're hiring them for a very specific job that only certain people are uniquely qualified to do well.
Yeah. It's it, so we're not trained. None of us are trained. Even I'm a little bit trained, but I'm not fully trained on how to interview people properly. But one of my clients had a lady come in as a designer. So she came into the office, said, "Hey, are you taking applications for a designer?" He said, so he started talking to her, just to get to know her a little bit better, but he didn't know how to end the interview. So it went for almost an hour and three quarter.
Wow.
And so when we had our coaching meeting after, he was like, Dom, I don't know how to end a conversation. I didn't know how to get out of there. So they just kept talking, but it didn't even go anywhere. They just were talking. And I suppose the kind of things that you're bringing is data and tools for people to understand how to assess the person for the job the right way, do it quickly, do it respectfully, and move on. You either move forward or you don't move forward. That's just
Yeah.
kind of where it is.
And there's a lot of tools out there nowadays. You have one-way video interviews that sort of allow you to screen people. Our prediction assessments allow you to screen. So our goal is in a very automated way, but a human way, to make sure that you're just talking to the 5 or 10 that you know are going to be perfect fit candidates. So you can really focus on fit and
Yeah.
less on are they going to be able to do the job because we've already done that hard work for you. But in my book, The Sales Boss, I have a couple of chapters just strictly related to one, how do you write a job post? But secondly, what are the different kinds of interviews and how do you structurally do those interviews? It's written from the standpoint of hiring salespeople, but I would
Right.
maintain that one, we're all in sales to a certain extent, but secondly, those same principles apply. And I'm a big believer in very early screening people, and if it's not a fit, being really clear
Oh,
with people. This is a time period in your life. Let's say you set aside an hour and you'd know in the first 15 minutes you'd never hire this person. That other 45 minutes is wasting your life and theirs.
yeah, that's
The
true.
only reason you don't get to it is because you're uncomfortable and you say, well, so you stick it out for the whole hour and they say, well, then I'll get back to you. And now you've just given yourself homework to get back to them, right? And you've left them with false hope. It's way more humane to just say, Dominic, I'm struggling with how to say this. I know you've gone to a lot of effort to get here. Do you want me to just shoot you straight or,
Yeah.
and what are you going to say? You're going to say,
I
shoot me
just say, yeah,
straight.
just
You're going
shoot
to
me
say,
straight. Yeah, just tell me the truth.
I thought based on your resume and everything else, you might be a great fit for this. It turns out I've already talked to somebody that I know is more qualified and that I'm already leaning towards. And while we could spend another 45 minutes here, I just don't think it's fair to you.
Nice.
And we end here, they're going to say, great, thanks for letting me know that.
Yeah. Instead of
But you
stringing
just
you
have
along.
to have sort of that in your tool belt to how do I end it gracefully? And the ending it gracefully is sort of fall on your sword and then say, I just don't feel like it's fair to
Yeah.
take more of your time when I can already tell my inclination is to go a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. How many interviews do you do as part of your work?
At this point, I don't do hardly any interviews. Personally, I just do interviews, for my
Oh,
team.
like this. Yeah. Yeah. Or
But
for your team,
I
right?
have done thousands and thousands of interviews.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I remember points in my life when I was going on thousands of interviews. Yeah.
yeah,
I like to, I don't know that this comes from just the school of hard knocks, but I like to put filters in up front. And
yeah,
I find myself very aggressively culling people when I, typically because I run an ad. I do what
yeah,
everybody else does. We run an ad. That's the first, it seems like the easiest thing. The more creative is to always, and Tommy Mello talked about this, you're always recruiting. Like if I find a waiter who's got a great customer service attitude and a great attitude, hand them the card and
yeah,
say, hey, are you looking for a career change?
yeah.
Do you like being on the tools? Let me talk to you. That's all the recruiting side.
Yeah,
Right.
I think,
Sorry.
one of the things you have to put yourself in the mindset of the candidate as well. And candidates are also getting ghosted, right? Companies are having them jump through all of these hoops before they really get an opportunity to connect with the company. And it's because the company doesn't want to, they don't want to talk to all of these non-qualified candidates.
Yeah.
So I encourage in all of your advertisements, all of your interactions to be very clear on what are the steps of the process going to be, right? So they know sort of the length of this thing, but also how long should it take? So I'll always say, we'll get back to a candidate within 48 hours.
Mm.
And it's going to be a thorough process, but it'll move quickly and rapidly for the right person so
That's a
that they
nice way to
get
say
that.
it.
And the reason companies don't get back to people within 24, 48 hours is because they don't have a system in place that allows them to move at that speed.
Uh,
You have to equip your team, one, with the tools to move really rapidly, but secondly, to feel human. So as an example, we've built into the Who Hire platform that as soon as somebody applies, they're getting a text message that feels human. It
mm,
says, right, and because you got to give a little to get a little.
yeah.
But you have employers that build up this whole process where a candidate's going to invest hours and hours just trying to get on your radar to be able to come find out if they would even want the job.
Right.
So you got to balance the filter with the human,
Yeah.
if that
A friend
makes
of mine
sense.
just got hired as the CEO for a tiny home company.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, being in the trade of construction and contracting, I was talking to him about this, and the whole process of getting his resume to them seemed very well scripted. But after he gave him the resume, it was what you said. It was lots of gaps, lots of waiting, lots of not sure. He really wanted the job. He actually went into one of their offices, one of their branch offices, to try to talk to somebody, and he just got
Yeah.
shut down. He goes, he kept
Yeah.
trying, but
Companies don't have a well-worn process and criteria. So in the past, when I used to help companies recruit, one of the things that I always had in place was at the point of interview, when the person walks out of the room, you have to decide the next step. Like it's not I'm going to think it over. I'm going to talk
mm,
to a bunch of people. You should have your hiring criteria so well defined that when that person's in front of you, you know whether you're going to make that offer or not.
mm.
Now, it might be pending a background check. It might be pending a
But
drug
that's the next
test
step.
or,
The next
but
step is I'd like you to take a
yeah,
drug test. I'd like you to
but
do a background check, a
yeah,
police check. Right.
yeah. So a yes doesn't mean yes, I'm hiring. Yes means yes, I'm moving you to the next stage, or no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And you really owe it to a candidate to be able to make that decision within an hour after they walk out of that room. Like
Yeah.
sitting on it is not gonna, one, you're gonna be on to the next busy thing, and 2 days will have passed by before you actually follow up with a candidate.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it does go fast.
Yeah. But you just gotta
So
you gotta give them that awareness.
let me put this in context for people that are listening. Are we talking about office staff, or are we talking about the technician on a ladder with a heat exchanger on their in
Yeah,
their
it
hands?
could be both, but we're really centered into those high turnover customer facing roles. So your technician, your installer, your comfort advisor, your salesperson, your dispatcher, CSR agent,
Mm-hmm.
any of those roles which tend to be high turnover, high training. If you're hiring somebody and you're training them to do your installation and they're understanding all of your warranties and how everything else works, you really don't want that position turning over in 90 days,
Oh gosh, no.
120 days. And yet that is often what happens. Most HVAC plumbing companies, they have a turnover rate somewhere around 35% within that first year. Within the first year,
That's high.
super high.
But then let's look at another industry that has an extremely high turnover rate. fast food.
Yeah, fast food.
And so they actually have to become really good at recruiting and training people quickly and then having simple SOPs to run the systems.
Yeah.
So we can complain that we've got a 30%, we're replacing people at a 30% rate, but imagine a restaurant doing it at 300% a year, just
Yeah.
replacing and replacing and replacing. But it's just the model, it's how things work. It's an entry level job for people. So they get really good at recruiting, really good at hiring, really good at training.
Yeah, it's what I find fascinating and is that in most companies, the cost of turnover and the cost of non-performance doesn't show up on anybody's profit and loss sheet. Like it's not assigned to someone, and we tend to let ourselves off the hook. When we make a bad hire, it's always about the person we hired, right? Well, I didn't know this, or they showed up as a different
Yeah.
person. We sort of let ourselves off the hook. And yet we remember the ones we win on. And so we end up with this bias that we know how to pick winners. And I've had people that'll look at the data. The data will say this is a bad hire. And they're like, no, I'm going to trust my gut. And they do, and they make a bad hire, and it costs them, but how quickly they forget the pain of
Oh,
making
yeah.
that bad hire.
Yeah. Here on this show, we talk a lot about revenue responsibility per hour.
Yeah.
And it's really simple math. I'll use very simple numbers. If you do $1 million in sales a year and you work 40 hours a week, which I know people are laughing and pounding their hand on the steering wheel right now because they work probably more than that. But the easy math, anyways, is that's 2,000 hours. And so your time is worth $500 an hour as
Yeah.
the owner. It doesn't mean you bill yourself at $500 an hour. It just means that every hour of the day, you and I are accountable for $500 in value to the business. Well, now think about you've got complaining Charlie or bad attitude Betty. This is the wrong hire. So bad attitude Betty consumes 2 hours of my day just dealing with the shrapnel of her bad attitude, causing cancer in the office, or complaining Charlie, the problems that we get from customers and all that. When you start to add it up, you're like, this guy's costing me $1,000 a day. Dealing with him for 2 hours a day is just eating my time as the owner when I'm supposed to be growing the business. Charlie has to be trained or Charlie has to go. Betty has to be trained or Betty's got to go. And I know it sounds
Yeah.
cold, but I'm running a business.
Yeah, when you're a small business, the impact of a bad hiring decision is so much greater than once you're a large company. If you're a large company and you have 100 employees, 400 employees, you can have four or five that are, just so, and you're
Yeah.
still going to get. But if you have 4 or 10 employees, one or two bad hires really can upset the whole apple cart.
Yeah. A
So,
lot.
but what happens also in a small business is that hiring is not their full-time job. And so when they're in the process of sourcing somebody, screening people, hiring them, it feels heavy to them. It's taking them away from this other thing they need to do. And they're probably trying to hire somebody because they're overwhelmed anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So they'll tend to overlook some of the red flags about a person they're bringing in just to get the job process
Just to get
over.
a
They
body.
settle for good enough. And I call that the illusion of having filled the job,
Mm.
right? Because I now have a name, I have somebody showing up. But the truth is, if we haven't done our job well, we've just got a placeholder there. It's like we still have a hole in the bucket. The leak's just not going maybe as quick, or it's
Yeah.
coming from a different area. But we haven't actually fixed the problem if we haven't hired correctly.
Yeah. So what do we do? So you've got a contractor out there who's listening, going, you know what? I do have this problem, or I'd like to fix it. Realizing that they've got some under capacity people on the team, or they're ready to hire somebody, but they want to make the right decision. How do we start?
Well, one thing I always suggest is that a contractor has a blueprint for what are they trying to build.
Hmm.
So most contractors probably have something in their mind that's a 5-year plan.
Well,
They
I would
may,
hope, or they should contact me to get one.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that plan's going to require a certain number of people. And
True.
it's going to require a certain number of departments. And right there, there's an infrastructure to that plan. And I would get that down on paper, even if you can't hire them all today,
Yeah.
right? And decide what are all the hats my initial people are going to wear. But the reason you have a blueprint is then you realize the importance of every one of those key hires at the beginning, because you'll really understand what are they going to support in the future.
Mm,
And then secondly, how much revenue am I attaching to this 5-person organization or 10 or 40-person organization?
right.
So, let's say I want to have $10 million, right? A $10 million business. And I don't know what most people will run in a construction for a $10 million business, but let's call it 25 people.
Oh, yeah. The number we look at in general is $150,000 in revenue per full-time employee.
Yeah,
So if
I
I
think
do
you're
10
going
million,
broke at that. So I think it actually should be closer to 300,000 per employee, especially if you're like in an HVAC plumbing business. My personal bias,
sure.
but
No, that's okay.
but
But you need around
but
60 people.
yeah, but whatever that number is, I have a revenue number per head,
Mm,
right? And I want to think about when I'm going to hire somebody that I'm literally writing in my book, I say, write yourself a $500,000 check, right? Write that check out. And the minute you interview somebody and you're going to say yes to putting them at the next stage, imagine that you have to give them that check.
yike.
Because most small business owners don't take it that seriously. And so one is just getting serious to realize if I make a bad decision, I've just handed $500,000 my business, because it's not the cost of just the revenue they're providing and what I'm paying them. There are all these other ancillary costs that become really clear to me when I sort of think about it in a 5-year window.
Yeah.
So why do I say that? Hiring is a mental exercise first and foremost. You have to give it it doesn't feel the same pressure as I've got a customer who, I have a delivery schedule I need to fix and all of the other fires. I would rather let the fires burn
Mm,
and take the time to hire quality people than to be out firefighting and over here trying to sort of part-time hire,
yeah.
right?
Making the wrong hiring decision because it,
Yeah.
it adds up. But again, a
It,
lot of people are like, I just hire somebody, get the problem solved. We'll train them up. And if they don't work out, we're going to replace them. But the problem
and
is that keeps you stuck in a loop
it
of never
does.
getting ahead. And
And
and and once they start wearing your t-shirt and hat, now it's your brand. And your brand is actually the most valuable thing in the company. That's the future value of the business.
yeah.
So if they start to
Oh,
wreck that brand, it's not good.
yeah. And the other thing I would do is audit your own head trash. You
Mm,
start hearing business owners that are burned out on people,
mm,
and they're like, nobody wants to work these days, and these millennials, and it's sort of a negative thing. When you look into your business, every single thing you see that you don't like is something you should be disliking about yourself. You built it, you tolerated it, you created the environment for it. It is 100% your fault.
mm.
And this mindset that people don't want to work is actually a lie. I have plenty of clients who are hiring 50 to 100 rock stars every single month. People show up to the companies, they're
Yeah.
enthused, they do great work. If you're not accomplishing that in your business, it isn't the people's problem. It is your problem. People don't want to
Mm.
work for you. People don't want to work for your company. You're not inspiring people. You're giving them no purpose, no meaning, and you don't know where to find good people. It
Wow.
doesn't matter that you can build a great home or you can install a great system. That's not the business you're in. If you want to do that, go be a technician. You're in the business of building with people. That's your raw material. And a bad attitude about your raw material is not going to help you build a winning company.
No, it's so interesting that you say that, but literally anybody can swing a hammer or
Yeah.
pick up a shovel or paint a wall. But the attitude that we have on the team is the magic that holds it together. And so I've got to have a team I trust who follows a system, who has a culture. And I get the grief all the time. When I start talking about culture and values, people roll their eyes. They're like, Rubino, you're a business coach, aren't you? You're talking about culture and values, and let's all hold hands and sing kumbaya. And I'm like, yeah, let's hold hands and sing kumbaya. If that's your company's thing, sing loud. You're like, if your company's thing is sports, at fantasy football teams, make that your company thing. And you can go in 1,000 directions with just that about making that the culture of your company. It doesn't matter what your culture could be just about great barbecue. Make that the thing.
Yeah. So in my book, I say your business should be like a jazz club. And I use
Oh,
jazz club as an example because I happen to like jazz music. So substitute that for anything, but I'll tell you why a jazz club. I
sure.
was living in Kansas City, and between my
Wow.
office and my home was about a 6 block walk, and halfway between was the oldest jazz club in Kansas City.
Mm.
And so I had to walk past this place every evening. And even in the evenings where I was not in a mood, had a terrible day work, I just want to get home and I'm not going to stop. By the time I start getting close, I start hearing that thump, 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 and I hear the little music. I'm like, it probably wouldn't hurt if I just came in and listened to one song. So I'm inside, I'm leaning against the bar. The bartender says, "Hey, you want something to eat, Wisman, or drink, Wisman?" "Oh, no, I'm just going to stay for one set."
Yeah.
What happens pretty soon? I'm like tapping my foot, right? I'm looking around, I'm like, "Ah, heck, give me a drink," right?
Yeah.
And so, and that's the way your company needs to be. You have to have such rhythm inside your company that it will draw people in. And even when they're not in the mood, pretty soon they're tapping their feet, they're moving, they want to stay late. And secondly, if you've ever been inside a jazz club, when they have a group of house musicians,
Mm.
and then they bring in a visiting musician, and that musician can come in and riff over the top of the music, do all their style and their flair, and they land right in harmony with the house band.
Oh, okay.
And the reason they can do that is there's a structure to jazz music, right?
There's
And
rules.
so there's
Yeah.
rules around it. And your company needs to be similar. You want to bring in these really talented, unique humans and individuals, and you want them to do all that rifting across the top, right? But they have to know, how do they fall in beat to your music? Well, that's where your culture comes in. And it's not the culture you put on the wall.
Yeah.
It is the unspoken culture of what happens in your business. And people need to belong. It's not that they want to belong, they need to belong.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, as a business owner, when you're thinking about hiring, it's like, what goes into my jazz club? What are my beats that everyone knows? This is how we do the
What are the
things,
rules? This is
the
how we
way
do
it's
it here.
done.
Yeah.
Right. And because then they can be themselves and they can be comfortable in that environment and still bring their best self to work.
Yeah. There's so many things that we normally talk about on the show that you just touched on there, right? What are the rules? What are the job site rules? What does it mean to be on our team? What are our values? And earlier you mentioned a strategic plan. Well, a good strategic plan actually starts with a company's culture and values. And people that haven't gone through this before are rolling their eyes. And the reason I know that is I used to be that guy.
Yeah.
I used to think, oh, culture and values, come on.
Come on, I got work to do, Dominic.
Yeah, who's going to talk about that? But then, as I got older, I started to get a little wiser, a little bit. Obviously, I have more aging to do, but I realized it's the glue that holds everything else together. It's the stuff that there's companies out there that don't have any rules written anywhere, but everybody knows what's expected of them, and they're proud to be there. They know that this is called Rubino Plumbing and Heating, and this is what it means on the Rubino Plumbing and Heating team.
Yeah, I was in a
Just by a
company
simple statement,
I was in
you
a
know.
company the other day, and I heard an employee who's not in a leadership position say to somebody that was a new hire, walked up to him and said, "Hey, around here we don't," and corrected him.
Yeah,
And it was something minor, which
right.
was leave dirty dishes in the sink.
Love it. But that's how it starts,
But
man.
that all of a sudden becomes, you're not managing people anymore yourself because the team's holding people accountable. And you know what? The new hire was like, "Oh, sorry, man," and put it away. I guarantee you that kid never leaves a dish out in the break room. And it seems minor, right? But around here, we don't leave our truck in disarray. Around here, we don't show up on a job site with an unwashed truck.
Yeah,
Like, what are the around here's,
yeah.
right? And so we're sort of way off on this topic, but when we're talking about
But
how
we're
to
not.
hire
But we're not.
successfully,
That's what it means to be on the team.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're really hiring for people that will thrive in that environment.
Mm.
The problem is if you have a dysfunctional environment, then you really need to hire people that can thrive in a dysfunctional environment, because your great people will churn out.
Yeah. Well, and that is the challenge that I think some of us hit. We don't think when we go into business that we're in the people business. And again, I've learned this from one of my clients because I listen when smart people are talking. And he said something so wise. He goes, Dom, we had just gone through a pretty trying time in his business. And he kind of looked up at me and he goes, you know what? My people are my tools.
Yeah.
He had started on the tools and sort of now had a business. And then, he's just a normal guy, didn't finish high school.
Yeah.
I mean, his job prior to starting the company is he moved retail display units inside a big department store. And then he started making cabinetry for like friends and family. And then he had a business. Well, now he's sitting on a $2 million business. And he's like, I don't even know how I got here. I don't know how I got here. He says that behind closed doors, right? With his business coach. But as we moved through that and other things, at one point he said to me, I finally realized my people are my tools now. And that was such a brilliant statement. He got to that point where he recognized it's not him that has to go and install. It's not him that needs to go measure. He's got people that need to do that, and they need to do it his way because that's his company. It's his reflection. And he built the culture around that.
Yeah. It's a good insight when somebody realizes we're in the business of who.
Oh, neat.
Right. We're in the business of who. And we should be asking who's going to do that. The other thing that I notice with entrepreneurs, and I certainly faced this myself, the first few companies that I built, was this tendency to say, nobody's going to care as much as I do, and they're not going to do it the way I'll do it. Like it's that 100%er perfectionism, which is really a cover for I'm a control freak. Because the reality is other people will probably do it better than you are.
That never happens in business ownership.
Yeah, you'll just be critical of it. But secondly, if I can do a job 100% myself, or I could have 10 people doing that job at 80%, I still have far more results with the 10 people doing it at 80%. Is that 20% really that important?
Yeah.
Right. And somehow decoupling our mindset that if I want it done right, I'm going to do it myself. That's a lesson that you have to learn, where you're actually taking pride in the fact that you're needed less and less as part of your team.
Well, then we come down to belief of the business owner and what the hero versus the savior.
Well, and you've seen this in construction businesses, especially, is that many people get into it as the doer. Right.
Absolutely. That's exactly how they get into it.
They are swinging the hammer. They are doing that. And then they get into business, but their identity, the thing that they pride themselves at, is still that trade skill.
Yeah. When they need to start developing the people around them, which is what you and I do all day. Develop the people so you can run the systems that run the business that help you.
Yeah.
So listen, if people, you've mentioned your book, people might want to find that. So if people want to find you in this big wide world, Jonathan, how do we do that? And then mention the book or any websites you've got as well.
Yeah, you can Google the sales boss. I'll come up everywhere. But my book is by that name. And if you want to reach me personally, I'm at whohire.com. And you can just use my first name, John, Jon, at whohire.com if you want to email me. But there's contact us stuff all over the web. Most people don't have a hard time finding me and getting in touch with me if they have an interest.
Well, this is even the things that I do in the interview process. If you can't find me, you're not looking.
That's right.
Right. So for more administrative positions, just going back to hiring, when I'm trying to get people in an administrative or support role, really early in the process, I ask them to do a little bit of research on me, give me back some suggestions for improvement.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for them to come to me and say, I found a spelling mistake on page 3. Like, yes, you are a detailed. I don't have to ask if you're a detailed person. A, you looked at the website, and B, you found the spelling mistake. And for those people who know me, they're laughing because I constantly make spelling mistakes.
All right, now I'm going to have to go out to your website and find your spelling mistake.
Yeah. But it's going to come through by, those are the little tests we can put in place, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So you're whohire.com, and then the book is The Sales Boss.
That's it.
Jonathan, thank you. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
sharing
great to
the
chat
insights.
with you, Dominic.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. We'll probably have you back again. You've got some interesting AI stuff cooking in the background that you had me test the other day.
I did, and I'm eager to get it out there in the wild. About another month.
Mm.
But people might have heard conversational AI. Um, it is getting to the point where you can have AI call you. You won't even be able to tell it's not human. It has a better sense of humor, asks better questions,
Oh,
grades
for
better
sure.
on the
Yeah.
back end. That being said, we're never going to try to pass ours off as humans, but we are going to think of it as a fast pass to a busy Disney ride where your people that are coming in the front of the business are able to find out all the details they want about your business and would they want to work for you. And you can do some pre-qualifying so that you're only spending time and quality time with people that you can't go wrong with hiring.
You're culling it. And, people might think culling is not polite, but you want to cull up front and fast. And for those of you thinking, oh, I could never do that. When's the last time you went through a stack of 2x4s and you looked at every single edge before you chose the one you're going to buy? You just culled. And we do the same thing when we're trying to hire people.
Yeah, and the truth is that it's also more fair to the person that you're not hiring
Mm,
if you call them early. The worst thing is for somebody to make a change in their family situation, come to work for you, only to
right.
find out that they're not a fit for the job. You would have, it's a disservice to them. It looks bad on their resume. It it harms their self-view of themselves and prevents them from going on to the thing that they could be uniquely
Mm,
talented for. Not everyone is qualified to work for you, and you're not qualified to be everyone's employer. There might be people that are past you already, and
yeah.
where and your company doesn't give them the level of opportunity that they need at this point. There is a sort of a perfect spot in there where your company and the other human on the other side of that can enter into an agreement where both of you can succeed.
Love it.
And that's the
Let's,
perfect point in which to hire that who.
it's very inspiring, Jonathan. Thank you. I want
Excellent.
everybody to go forward and be inspired. Find the right people for your company. And then there's tools to help us to do that
Yeah.
because it's not magic. It is not, it's the last thing from magic and it's the furthest thing from luck
Yeah,
or a
my
predictive tool.
my grandpa used to say business would be easy if it wasn't for the people.
Oh,
And I've adapted that a little to say, people are unique, but they're predictably unique. And the goal is just to figure out what unique things do you need in your business
mm,
and then to go find those.
there you go. Thank you, sir. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, you've given us a lot of value here. We'll have you back again. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Well, 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 what did you learn from Jonathan? And what are you going to put in place? Pretty interesting the way AI has found its way into so many things that we're doing these days. And Jonathan there at the forefront. Jonathan, thank you for being with us. And folks, if you want to pick up that book, The Sales Boss, go and grab that. Listen, well, we're on the people theme today, and it's so interesting because I have somebody reached out to me on the topic of people, and he wanted the people pack. I don't know if you've heard me talk about on the show, if you've had a chance to download it yet. Anyways, I'm going to read you his email. His name's Daniel C. Daniel, I had to edit your letter to make it flow a little bit better. So you'll understand that I'm keeping the sort of the spirit of what you intended, but I had to tighten up some of the sentences here so I could read it. So here's what Daniel had to write. Hi, Dom. We met in Atlanta at the FBU conference. By the way, folks, FBU is the Freedom Builders University Conference. It's something held by the New Flat Rate, which is a menu pricing tool for the HVAC industry. So, hi, Dom. We met in Atlanta at the FBU conference. I heard you speak, and I was in your breakout session on winners and losers at work. I kept your whole workbook and the above and below the line picture. You made it really easy to understand, and now I know what you mean. It burned in my mind. The whole bottom part of your presentation was exactly my dispatch manager, especially the blame part. She was on my mind the whole time, but I never thought I could get rid of her, even though she is a real, I'm going to say PITA, folks. And you know what a PITA is? PITA. Even though she's a real PITA, but she just quit and I've never been so happy. She has been with me from day one, so I never thought I could give her the axe. She knows everyone, and she's a bit rough, but she always got the job done. Anyhow, she quit. And I know, sorry, guys. Anyhow, she quit. And I knew the whole time you were talking that she was on the loser side of the equation. It's going to be tough to find a new one, but the team is already way happier. I should have done it sooner and not waited for her to leave us shorthanded. It's like a weight is off my shoulders. So thanks. Can I have the people pack, please? So, and that's from Daniel C. And I remember Daniel because, it was a pretty small event and we were all kind of pretty close there in the breakout rooms. If I remember right, Daniel's got 6-7 trucks. He does residential service work. So thank you, Daniel. And I know you wrote the email to me. I had to change it a little bit to make it, readable in this format. But thank you very much for reaching out. And yeah, we'll send you the people pack. So listen, these changes that we need to make in our business around people happen in so many ways. And as a leader, people are always tugging at us. Our people always have to be on our guard. It's not like we're hanging out with friends. They're always trying to catch us in something. I'm going to read you another email that came in actually from one of the cabinet makers that I deal with. And this one, I'm going to go to my phone. So give me a second here. Da-na-na. Here we go. So I got this text as I was coming back. I was just in Las Vegas for Jobber. Jobber is a construction management software that some of you are using. Anyways, they had me down there recording a couple of podcasts for them. And so as I was, boarding the plane, I got this text from a gentleman named Bill. He says, I have to use the raise self-assessment document again. This time, my new finisher wants a 60% raise from $18 to $30. He's vitally important to our team and does really good work. He started at $16 in August, and I bumped him up unasked to $18 in December. I can't afford to lose him, but I also can't afford to give him $30 an hour. My shop lead only makes $26. What do I do? And I don't mind telling you guys, this is my advice. Remember, I'm writing this advice as I'm boarding the airplane. So, they're saying, shut the cabin doors. We're about to take off. Here's what I said. Stand firm. I don't know the whole story, but you can't be held hostage by your employees. And then I got this response back when I landed. I'm just going to lay it all out for him. I like him and I want to keep him, but not at the risk of my business. ! So much gap in ability between 18 and 30. The cojones to ask for a nearly 90% raise in under a year. Unfathomable. And then, he says, thanks for your help. So guys, we all have these people problems. That's two different people talking about kind of a cancer in our company. So we always need more and better tools. We need tips and inside tracks on how to deal with the people problem. And so we've got the people pack. That's what I want to feature today as the free download to help you based on what Jonathan shared in his interview, based on what Bill said, based on what Daniel said. There's probably a lot of need for many of us to, bolster ourselves under the people pack. So the people pack has things in there that, of course, you need to manage the people side of this business, right? And I want you to have it so that you've got everything that you need going forward. There are some things that you didn't expect in there, like the where are my blind spots document. So that's a good overall assessment for you to look at to understand the blind spots in your business. They might say, well, what does that have to do with the people pack? Well, until we have the big picture, you don't know where to dig deep. So that one is there for you. I've got another big picture assessment for you that you guys, many of you have already done, which is the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Planner. It's a 3-page document, but again, it sets you clear on what you want as the business owner. What do you want this business to do for you? So yes, that falls under the people category because this is the people that are going to be invited into your company to help you build the dream that you have. And then we've got the company policy and procedure manual for construction and trades. Obviously that fits under the people category. Here's one that you might be surprised at: how business partners can work better together. Yeah, that definitely falls under the people category. And then we've got the document. It's been around for a long time, folks. How to hire for attitude, including 2 interview scripts. So the problem that Daniel had in his story about the dispatch manager is she had a bad attitude. Well, she probably still has a bad attitude. She just doesn't work for him anymore. But she took control and quit on him, leaving him in the lurch instead of him saying, look, these are the rules for what it takes to be in the company. This document, How to Hire for Attitude, including 2 interview scripts, it's like a key and a lock for everything Jonathan Porter-Whistman was talking about in today's episode. Attitude is everything. We can teach technical skills. For those of you who believe that your technical skills are the only technical skills in all of North America that can ever do this thing, give your head a shake. That's why it's a technical skill. It's the soft skills of leadership and management and the creativity around growing a company that's hard to duplicate. But look, being a finisher, like Bill was talking about, or being a dispatcher, those are all technical skills that people can learn. Those people learned them. You and I may have learned them. We've learned other technical things, but it's the soft skills that are important. And we can tell, we look for these tools to see if people have those soft skills or the ability to grow into those soft skills by using what Jonathan was talking about today, or this part of the people pack called How to Hire for Attitude. Not only how to hire people for the right attitude, but I give you 2 interview scripts to use. So if you don't know what to say at an interview, those days are over. You just use the script in here. Anyways, that's called the people pack. All you have to do if you want that is shoot me a text. The cell phone number is 315-903-7853 and say the magic words being people pack. Anyways, listen, thank you very much for checking in. I just did a road trip. I was in, where was I? I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, visiting some Amish contractors. Then I drove up to Philly. Then I went to Jersey. Then I went up to the Hartford, Connecticut area, and then I flew back out. So that was great. And the reason I say that's great is because I always say on the show, I just really can't wait for the day when you and I can have a cup of coffee across a desk with each other, a table with each other. Not only did I have coffee, I had a couple of glasses of wine too. And then I was in Las Vegas at Jobber. I met even more people there. And that makes me happy because this podcast is one thing, but actually making real connections is, more important to me. So I hope one day you and I have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine across the table. Until then, have a great day. Download the People Pack or ask for it. And once again, the cell phone number, just shoot me a text to my cell, 315-903-7853 and say People Pack. I'll send it off. All right, folks, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.